Hello, I'm Reggie Turner, and I'm here with Andy Overton, Terrence Moore, and Henry House. The FlipSide starts right now. Welcome to the show. Today we're going to start with some local news in regards to our Republican Central Committee and an uproar that was created in regards to Facebook posts and memes. There was a meme posted by the chairman, Jerry DeWolf, that was insinuating suicide relative to Hunter Biden. That drew quite an outrage, and there was some calls for his resignation, what he said that he would not do. But at minimum, it was in poor taste. Henry, what say you?
Well, I saw the post. It was Friday night, a week ago. I saw the post. I was kind of bristled by it. You know, there's memes going around all the time, but when you start to put those two things together, and it was on the Central Committee page, it bothered me. I went up, I showed my wife, and then I typed a reply. I didn't name the source, but I typed a reply and said, you know, based upon where our society is, the struggles that we've had in our community, because suicide rates are higher than they have been in the past because of the COVID stress that we have on families, and also wishing death upon somebody. And he did not directly wish death upon the individual, but it was alluded to. It was kind of a joke. Well, if you're associated with the Clintons, something happens to you whenever you have to go to testify. Never been any, clear facts putting those two together, or that would have made front page news. But I was taken aback by it, and then I saw other people on both sides of the aisle who I respect that got offended by it. And I think sometimes we all, maybe in haste, we post something a little too enthusiastically, and it was taken down. But my issue was how long it took for an apology to come out. If you're going to remove the post, then hit that apology button right away. It may not be crafted in the perfect wordsmith way that you want to introduce it, but hey, I'm sorry, I was a little over exuberant. I thought it was funny. I realize nothing regarding suicide is ever funny, and I would not wish death upon anybody in that regard. There's a little difference between what Jerry posted and then what former Board of Education member posted, but there's a lot of things that are troubling about that, because I've seen a number of posts on the Central Committee page that, Washington County Republican Club, let me clarify, not the Central Committee, the Washington County Republican Club, on their page, that sometimes makes you scratch your head of, is that really what I want to be associated with?
Now, and also in looking at this, the Central Committee is peddling in conspiracy theories.
Well, it's under the Central Committee does not have a page. It's the Washington County Republican Club.
I don't believe that's the case. Andy, what do you say?
No, I think it says the Washington County Central Committee page. And then there is also a Washington County Republican page. Anyway, point is, Henry, I'm with you, man. We can't simply joke around about anybody dying, and if our goal is to push our policies and our thoughts through a funny meme, it was just a joke, right, about suicide, you're on the wrong side of morality there. I think that there are far more intelligent ways in order to say, here's what I believe, without making fun of folks who may take their life. It's disappointing, but it's not surprising. I agree with you. Some of the memes on that page are absolutely outrageous. And some of the things that have been alluded to are just horrific. Let's get back to the policies. Let's talk about what is good, what is bad, where we stand, and leave people's lives out of it when it comes to death and dying and depression. Let's get back to the policies. It was a horrible post.
Agreed, Terrence.
It was in poor taste, and I think everybody can agree it was in poor taste. And the apology wasn't really an apology. It was it was some defensiveness in that apology as well, like kind of suck it up kind of feeling. And I'll apologize because everyone's kind of making an uproar about it. But the biggest issue, and as you pointed out, there's so many other things that we should be speaking about right now. Making memes is very lowbrow comedy anyway, to be on social media, coming out of the
representative.
a representative leader, especially central community, someone related to getting people out to vote. Like that's what you should be speaking about right now. How to get people out to vote, not entertaining them, not getting clickbait, but educating people on why they should be voting and what the policies are for voting for the candidate that you support. That's not happening. This is really attacking and even Republicans or Democrats. You should feel insulted that you feel that you have to be spoken to in a way of memes instead of educated in a way that's going to bring up your intelligence so you can go out and vote intelligently.
One of the things I would pose to you guys, what is this modeling for our next generation of voters? Like how we communicating to each other through memes, right? We're using memes to communicate, and I look at that page often. I don't see any serious policy discussions or differences or white papers. What type of behavior are we modeling for the next generation of voters, and what do you think the impact's going to be?
Well, I think it depends on how you consider social media a communication tool. If it really is just all jokes and bathroom humor, then it's exactly what it is now, right? If you think that you can get your policy and your procedures and your information from a Facebook page, I think that our next generation is more intelligent than that. I think our next generation will read and research and look up. They might use the internet to do it, but they're not going straight to a Facebook page and saying, here's why I feel this way because of a meme. I give our next generation way more credit, way more ability to research, analyze, and come up with their own ideas and look past the memes. But like I said, if Facebook is nothing more than college bad bathroom humor, then we are where we are today. I mean, that's what Facebook is then for them. But I give more credit to our next generation.
And you see our next generation pulling away from Facebook as it is.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a poor place to actually inform the next generation, the younger generation right now, voters. This is directly at their viewers. This is directly for the voters, our generation and the generation before right now. And this is how they're addressing them as well. And a lot of them don't get information from memes. They shouldn't get information from memes anyway. So they should be a little bit more informed. So this ploy to kind of bring in voters or get attention, it's all about a 15 minutes of fame. And hopefully we can look past it and voters go out and do the right thing. But if they believe that their core is getting information from here, it thinks this is funny and this is going to influence their votes, then they're in a bad place.
Well, first I'm looking at the immediate impact on the current election. Okay, is it going to sway votes? It's probably not going to sway votes too much, but at the same point, people are going to say, listen, this was really in poor taste, and they're going to hear us talk. They're going to see people's rebuttals on social media. There was a newspaper article on Wednesday this week with the mayor candidate, Emily Keller, who's a current councilwoman, calling out this post that he had done. So there's a lot of things that have a negative impact. It's not just what's going to happen here on November 3rd. It's how's that going to impact them going forward in building a base to support their policies. Okay, I understand what their goal and purpose is. It's trying to, but we have to raise the level of conversation. Okay. Communicating via memes is not raising the level of conversation. Our goal should be to educate the voters and raise their intelligence on the issues that they're going to vote on. And we have a lot more in common at this table than we have differences. And I would expect that same approach from my elected Central Committee members. And I think you would hold your elected Central Committees to the same high standards. We have to raise this. We don't need to be down slinging mud in the trenches. I'd like to see candidates take a pledge and say, listen, I'm not going to sling mud. Well, we know that's not going to happen, okay? It happens on the federal level. It's going to happen on the state level. What this does, it impacts the younger generations of saying, listen, I don't want anything to do with being involved with politics. Instead of the people who we really need to hear from and get involved in politics, we're discouraging them because they don't want to see these stupid things bandied around.
And I think we're worrying about top down. I think this is not education, this is entertainment. And when something's not entertaining, you turn the channel. So what I would love to have seen if something like this was posted, that people disconnect from the page in mass numbers. That's what's going to have to happen. We need to start holding those people we put in power accountable. And the only way we're going to hold them accountable is take them out of power or stop paying attention. And I can't say that I've seen the numbers from this page go any lower.
What if the individual who was posting this was no longer in charge of posting things on that page? I mean, they have that ability. I mean, it's like, listen, sometimes I really wish someone would have taken Trump's cell phone away from him so he wouldn't tweet. Same argument here is that, okay, you need to take time out, take a few months away, allow other people to post communication on the page and see what the response is and go from there.
So last question for each one of you. Should Jerry DeWolf resign?
For me, I don't think Jerry should resign. I think the apology came too late. I think it should have been an immediate apology. And as I just said a few seconds ago, I think he should take some time off of the social media responsibilities that he has within the Washington County Republicans. Whether it's for a short period of time or if it's for a longer period of time, I think that his fellow board members need to make that decision, because I think it was an embarrassing issue that happened in this community and unnecessary.
Terrence.
In a vacuum, I don't know what his other contributions are, but in a vacuum right here with this, if you can call for somebody else resignation, if you can call for someone else to resign based on their actions on social media, then you got to hold yourself to the same standards.
Yeah, I'll take it even further. I think that the base themselves need to rise up and say that is not okay. You hold yourself to the same level as you hold other individuals. We elected you, and I'd like to see that base rise up and say this is no longer part of our party. That's what I'd like to see.
Yeah. Well, I'll take the last word on this. On that post where he apologized, further in the comments, he liked another comment where someone said you should have never apologized. So, it looks like the apology was just for show, and that's just disappointing for our community. So, up next, latest numbers show job growth and also jobless rate increases in Maryland. That is the report coming up after the break. Welcome back. Recently released numbers show that 18,200 jobs were added in September here in the state of Maryland, as well as an uptick in unemployment, though. The rate is up to 7.2%. Andy, what does that signal to you?
It signals that everything is a little bit unstable right now. I don't think we can use these numbers to predict anything. I think we have, and we're going to see unemployment going up and down because we have seasonal jobs right now. We have folks coming in and out of COVID situations. We have businesses shutting down, trying to reestablish themselves. I think what this shows is a spotlight or a picture in time. And right now, this is where we are. I don't see this as any indication of how things are going to go in the future, simply because we don't know what's going to happen in 2 months with our pandemic. We don't know what's going to happen in 2 months for our community economic development.
Yeah. Now, one article I recently read in the Wall Street Journal was that the hospitality industry looks to be in trouble heading into the winter. How do you think that factors into what's going to happen in the future there, Henry?
Well, having been in the hospitality field, your biggest time of the year is, right before Thanksgiving, and you're running, essentially a week or two after New Year's, because you have all your parties and your banquets. And businesses are trying to reward their employees and show appreciation for them. Well, that business is gone. This is where you bank it. Plus, we're going into the cold months in this part of the country. So if that business is gone, what are you going to do? Because that helps get you through the February time, because February, not too many people go out for President's Day. Okay, you have a couple nights that you might be able to get away with for Valentine's Day, but nothing else. And Ides of March isn't a real big holiday. We have basketball going on then, hopefully. But again, it's not a lot of patronage until we start to get warmer weather. So it's going to be a rough month for the hospitality. And the people in the hospitality industry are the ones who can afford the least not to be working.
Right.
Because they are working at sub-minimum wage, okay, counting on your tips. Or they may be, regular kitchen workers that are making minimum wage. And we have to face it. if you work 2 jobs at minimum wage, maybe you can keep the lights on, but 1 job at minimum wage is really tough if you're supporting a family of 3 or 4.
Yeah.
So it's a tough situation, and it's going to get worse. And the conflict that we have, because the children in the sandbox inside the Beltway can't agree with things, is really embarrassing. It's embarrassing for both sides of the aisle. Both the Republicans and the Democrats. What we're off to get stimulus package for everybody to help them out, and maybe it's not enough. It's essentially what they're asking for, to have for a state bailout for the COVID, the COVID, but it's probably going into some pension plans and other things that they have overspent and overcommitted to.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that you alluded to that's also in the article is that of those 18,000 jobs, many of them were low income or low wage jobs as well. What does that say to you, Terrence?
You bring back who you can pay. Dangling the carrot of a stimulus package is, it's going to run out by December. I think we went back and forth on this, and we keep telling the hospitality industry that something's coming. Maybe the larger restaurants may survive. They're losing foot traffic, travel season, people outside shopping. All that goes into the dollars and cents that support the hospitality industry when we come into the winter months that get them through. And some of these businesses now have been closed for 10 months right now. And at this point in time, by the end of the year, it'll be 10 months. By this point in time, they realize they can't survive into the new year. So a lot of that's going to impact them. And we've seen that right now. A lot of people also are coming off unemployment. Their unemployment benefits are running out, so they are going back to work immediately. And some of those low-paying jobs are a lot of those essential jobs that we may have seen, and people kind of ramping up. And the holiday season is coming along, so some of those seasonal jobs are coming into the market. And a lot of those seasonal jobs are some low-paying retail positions that actually come into the market. So again, I agree with Andy what she said. This is a snapshot. These numbers are kind of inflated. We really don't know. There's too much influx still happening. Everything from week to week changes. So you can show these numbers a week from now and they'll be completely different. And because of that, you can't really put too much support behind them.
Yeah. One thing I'll add to the conversation is, today we saw the stock market fall about 3.5%. Yeah. We see COVID numbers spiking around the country. Even locally, I saw that Clear Spring High School's football team is going to self-quarantine for 2 weeks, and they're not going to play their first 2 games, along with numbers going up around here as well. I am pessimistic based on how COVID is moving. What do you think the impact of COVID is into those numbers going forward?
Oh, I think there's a huge impact, and mainly it's because we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know, I think from week to week, from this snapshot, how it will affect us. It depends on our policies around how we handle COVID as a state and as a community. It also depends, and I will say, I think life sciences, manufacturing, trade jobs will probably do okay. But those types of jobs require a skill. Either you've got to go to college to be certified, you need to have a hands-on apprenticeship, and it's not an easily come-by position. But if we can increase some of those jobs, we may be able to increase that economic number a little bit. But again, it's not a quick fix overnight. That's a long-term plan. So how this is going to affect it, the answer is yes. And if I knew how, well, I'd be a multi-million-dollar person sitting on a boat someplace. I have no idea how this is going to happen because we don't know what COVID's going to do to our communities.
Henry, how concerned are you about COVID?
Concerned about COVID? Where's Wood?
Yeah.
Okay. I think we have overhyped where COVID is at this point. And I'm not eliminating the fact of it is a deadly disease that people can catch, and it can be communicated. It's not as deadly as what they had advertised. I feel we really overreacted. I kind of like the Swedish model a little bit better than shutting down everything. But we weren't ready for that in this country. We didn't have those facilities available in case we did have a big outbreak. Now we're coming up of everyone's been under quarantine, to some degree, for months. And we're going into being locked indoors. So we are going to have another risk and probably a little uptick. Hopefully it's not that significant. Maryland is still fairly restricted. Down south, they're a little bit more wide open. They're going to be our litmus test for what we see up here as to how, whether we're going to let out the line a little bit more or not. But we're seeing cases starting to spike in other areas that weren't as severely impacted early on. So where do we go? The world only knows. I think it will be interesting in a few weeks after the dust settles from the election as to whether there was a lot of hyperbole to it or where the real true seriousness is. They keep talking, well, we're going to have a vaccine. Well, I haven't seen it yet. And I wouldn't be first in line to get the vaccine because I would like to see a little bit more testing done on it. But for our people in our community, the big issue is how are they going to survive winter? What are we going to do to help these families that are struggling, that have lost the opportunity to earn income and want to work? What are we going to do to help them still maintain a sense of identity and a sense of pride and not feel, oh, well, it's just charity being given to them, but actually a sense of identity and pride to try to get them back, find opportunities for them in the workforce, or at least to at least keep their heat and lights on and food on their table. Right. And that's the biggest issue I'm concerned with right now.
Now, the one thing that I will give you a little bit pushback on, I don't believe that deaths is the only measure, right? Because if positivity rates are going up, that means that is more people and more families that have to self-quarantine. So let me give you an example. It was just announced with the Herald Mail that the Cliff Spring football team had a COVID case, so now the team is going to isolate. Well, that's putting their families in the same position of isolating as well. So my point is that as positivity goes up, you're still affecting the workforce and employment situations with more and more people having to quarantine. And also, it may not be deaths, but also just hospitalizations going up and what that does to our hospital systems as well. Terrence, what do you say?
As well as people are asymptomatic. So there are people that won't be showing symptoms that they may be carrying it as well. And we don't know what's the deciding factor of who dies from it, who gets a flu-like symptoms and who just walks around and you can't tell they have it at all. So until we see some of those things determined, it's everyone's at risk. And because we don't have borders around our state, we can't separate the South from the North or the East from the West because anyone can travel freely across our country. And that especially during this season where people are going to be traveling for the holidays. So we're going to see more people put at risk, and we're going to see numbers go up as well. And we also have changed the habits of our country. So people may not be washing their hands for 20 seconds right now anymore, but more people are washing their hands. More people are using hand sanitizer. More people are wearing masks, and the numbers are going up every day. So I think, and also there's a fear of us being sheltered in place again in the coming weeks. So I do think the election will kind of clear some of those things up. I wouldn't say that we're holding anything back, but I do believe once the election's clear, we'll have more clear answers to what the coming months is going to bring.
Terrence, I'll give you the last word on that. Up next, early voting has started. Washington County polls have experienced long lines, and some states reported record turnout. Welcome back. Overall turnout in Maryland for early voting is reaching record levels, and some Washington County voters are reporting long lines for voting in person, and I can attest to that. My wife and I voted today, and we spent about an hour in line, but we had a lot of pleasant conversation. Terrence, what do you say about the long lines and the record numbers?
I'm happy to see it. I wish we would have seen some of that in the primaries, but it is speaking to voters going out and want to be heard. So you can never say anything wrong about people going out to vote, especially early voting right now with some of the negative press received around mail-in ballots. So to see people want to go out there, and braving the weather and standing in long lines, I've heard some people said they were in their line for about an hour to 2 hours at times today, then more power to them.
Yeah. Now, from my experience of what I saw today, I did see a few situations with the elderly. Walking through the long lines may not have been gotten to being offered to sit down for a minute. That was a little concerning in regards to a little bit of those logistics, but the lines were definitely long today. But Henry, have you voted yet?
I voted yesterday, and it was about an hour, but they were making some accommodations for those who can't stand in the line. Now, some people, they have their walkers or they brought chairs, lawn chairs, and they were sitting in the line, which to me, every 30 seconds you're picking up and you're moving your chair. So it kind of seemed like a lot of work. But when you checked in and you had someone else who was healthy to stand in line, they would allow you to sit inside
Yes.
and rest. And then when your individual got up to go in and say, oh, I'm with her, they would allow you to go in and vote. Now, on the other side is my wife, because she has issues with claustrophobia and anyway, she has asthma. She couldn't wear a mask, so she actually voted outside. And she said that was kind of an interesting process too. So if you need health accommodations, it's not you don't have to stand in line. You can go to the exit side and just let the person who's working the poll there that you want to vote by alternate ballot, and they'll provide you with the information, and it's just the same ballot that you would normally use, filling in the bubbles for the election, and then you seal it up and you label, sign, and put it away. My wife was done in 20 minutes. Okay, but she went back to the truck and waited for me. The biggest challenge you're going to have when you go to vote is finding a place to park.
Yes.
Okay, so please be careful when you go to vote, because some people are parking on Halfway Boulevard and Virginia Avenue and crossing across for their early voting center. Please be careful, because some people just are completely oblivious. I was lucky; I got the next to last parking place on the lot before I was going to get kicked out on Halfway Boulevard. But please be careful when you're out there doing it.
Yeah. Now, one criticism that I did hear from some of the voters as I was standing in line was, with 100,000 citizens for early voting, why do we only have one distinct location to vote? And tomorrow, the weather is supposed to be more challenging and raining, so I'm sure that's going to offer some challenges as well. Andy, what say you?
Yeah, I think we should have Barry Jackson back and ask that question again. So I certainly can't. I have no idea why we only have one center.
I think that was dictated by the state.
Probably,
level.
Right.
It was based upon your population, and right. Washington County not being as populated as Montgomery County.
Right, but I will tell you this, I was trying to find it just now, I read online there was a 90-something-year-old veteran who got in line at the very, very end, and the woman helping him asked the person ahead, would you mind if he went forward? And that person said yes, and they did that about 150 times, and he moved to the front of the line in order to vote because he was bound and determined, he had no chair. And it's those kinds of stories that tell me that even when you're standing in line, good things can still happen. I know it's frustrating, I know it's going to probably rain tomorrow, I know it can be hot and tiring, but I think if we all just bond together a little bit, help our fellow folks out, let them hop the line a little bit and move up if they can. Wonderful. We can get everybody through. Everybody's vote will count, and we'll be able to kind of make it through these long lines. So that's a good feel story this time.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that my wife escorted an elderly lady in so that she could sit down.
Yeah.
Because she stepped in line and was a little confused, and she was trying to catch up with her family. And we offered that she could get in front of us, but still standing was going to be an issue for her. So she was able to get in, and the procedure, like you said, she was able to catch up with her family. Once things moved along. But I believe that these early voting numbers are here to stay. What do you say about that, Terrence?
I wish I could say that. We've said it before.
Yeah.
So we see spikes in record numbers, and then 4 years later, 8 years later, they change again. We don't see this same kind of turnout when we see with the primaries. So I can't say that they will. And this was a unique year. A lot of people are voting based on some major issues that happened as we look around social justice, as we look around what happened with COVID, as we just look at the polar 4 years that we've had about going in and vote as well. So I can't say they're here to say. I hope they are. I do hope they are, and I hope that the elements don't keep people from coming out and voting tomorrow or any day after that, and everyone uses every opportunity, whether it's mail-in ballots or showing up. And I think it's a great opportunity for the public sector to learn from the private sector. Disney does it every day, all day. Right? How do they move people in line efficiently and get people through lines? And so I think some of those things that we need to really take into account, and I think that's what's here to stay. How we vote, I think, will change. But people coming out to vote, we can only hope.
And I see in some of the southern states there's been drive-through.
Yeah. Yeah.
voting, and that's something that I think that could have worked well. I just think that we need to be a little bit more creative in regards
If
to.
we have the parking lot to do it. I mean, right now we
You know,
don't even have enough parking spots. For
One of the
folks to
thoughts I had was, we go out to restaurants and they give you a little pager. Okay. Get the paging system, oh, this person. And, when they're ready, you have to be in the parking lot for it to beep off. Well, you're not standing in the hot sun the whole time. I mean, yesterday was a nice warm day when I went to vote. But that's an alternative. And another person in line says, "I wish they talked to the guys over at Chick-fil-A because they can move people through their parking lot."
That's exactly
There you go.
I mean, and that is proof. Yeah, you can get through a drive-through pretty quickly.
So what I'm hearing from you is that we need to think outside the box to enable voters to have a better access to their voting booth, to be able to get there, to be able to not have to stand in line so long, to make it easier for folks to exercise that right.
I always want anyone who has is legally allowed to vote to have the opportunity to vote.
Yep.
Okay. And I don't want the election being a month long. I think at this point we are 11 days. Is a total election window that we have, but I think we should based upon that information. And my wife was reading as we were driving over here tonight, saying, well, some people are now trying to figure out how they can recast their vote because they voted by absentee ballot. And they decided, based upon some last-minute revelation, they don't want to support candidate X or candidate Y. And I'm like, well, in Maryland, once you submit it, you've submitted it. It's done.
That's right.
Because, but some states allow for you to, pull that envelope back out of the pile and replace it, which I think is, that's another interesting story. My biggest thing with the early voting that we have and the absentee voting is, once you cast a vote, if there's a bombshell that happens on Monday before election? Well, if I've already cast my vote, I'm stuck. So how do you handle that? So that's one of my big concerns with the early voting and the impact of information.
The other thing is we're fortunate with our climate here. I mean, I think about some, Midwest has had snow and ice already. In the South, it could be really hot. We've been really fortunate here within our community in regards to kind of how the weather has been. Like I said, I believe tomorrow's supposed to be rain all day, so that may present some challenges. But I'm in agreement that we need to make it easier so that everyone has the ability to exercise their right to vote.
Millions of dollars are spent for campaigning for 18 months long, right? 30 days of voting isn't that bad. All right, so I really think that if we can make it, scheduling voting. This is my day. This is the day I'm scheduled. I go online. I book a schedule. I go in that time. We can keep 100 people out there. There's technology that we can use that won't impact votes, but can make it more, efficient and effective for people to actually vote. And that's what I think. Going back to thinking outside the box and doing things a little bit differently.
Yeah. Now, the one thing that we talked about last week is how low-income voters had less of a propensity to vote. And I look at what we're experiencing right now as a little bit of a poll tax, right? Because if you have to take an hour or two or more away from your job to be able to exercise your right to vote, then that very well may be suppressing the vote.
Well, except that you have ballot boxes all over the county, and there are other ways besides just 1 day or 9 days or 11 days to stand in line. So I think we are lucky in Maryland that we have those other opportunities, as long as our votes are counted, right? There are some states in this country where there is one ballot box. There is one place for folks to vote in that, and a whole county, and you have to get there. And some of those counties are really
much
big.
larger than ours.
Right, exactly.
Right.
So you're right. We are lucky where we are in Maryland, not just for the weather, but because we have an opportunity to vote in several different manners. And I think we need to look at that more for the rest of the United States to make sure we remove those hurdles, so that if you can vote and you want to vote and you are eligible, you can in any way that we know is deemed fit.
Excellent. I'll give you the last word on that. Up next, Fast Five. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now we're going to start the Fast Five. First topic up. Hancock Mayor Ralph Savagno agrees to pay restitution for painting over images of Confederate flag. Henry, what say you?
I think he got off easy. I mean, it was private property. It was not for him to do, and he went out and he's going to have 40 hours of community service and a $1,400 fine. for restitution, I think he really got off easy. I think he should have been slapped a lot
So
harder.
what would a proper punishment have been in your opinion?
Oh, I think we could put him out into community service for 6 months. Okay, I mean, it's defacing other people's property. Okay, if I went and I threw paint on something I didn't like, would I be let off because I'm the mayor? Is it the benefit of the office? Is it his actions because he was making a political statement? What was it? And that's kind of the way I view it. Is there's lots of things that we all drive by every day that can offend our sense and sensibilities. And he decided to take it in his own hands and go on someone's personal property and destroy it.
Andy.
Yeah, you do the crime, you pay the time, I guess. It doesn't matter whether he was the mayor or not. I think that this is a consequence that he has to face. And I don't think you have to get more, you don't have more of a consequence just because you're a public official. You shouldn't have less of one because you're a public official. But this, I would think, and I don't know the answer to this, but for a first-time offender of throwing some paint on a sign, it's probably about the right consequence that everybody else who
I think he actually got the rollers out, not just throwing paint. I think he got the rollers out.
It doesn't matter. The crime is that he defaced some property. He admitted to it, or maybe I don't know if he admitted to it or not. He was found guilty. Here's his consequence. Let's move on.
So the rollers took it over the top
Yeah.
of you.
Yeah.
Got it.
So if it was a
Well,
paint
I mean,
time,
we have
it'd
people
be
who
6.5
were defacing
months.
other monuments across the country during the summer. They didn't have any type of penalty like this. So
Those were
there's the
public
other side of the
monuments,
argument.
though. I mean, there's
Yeah.
right.
It
this
was
is
on public
this is
property.
Yeah, but my point is, this sign was on someone's private property. It was a private sign. You can't deface somebody else's property. Period. It's not a monument.
I wish
it's
everyone
somebody's property.
would understand that.
Terrence, what would you say?
I think everything's been said pretty much.
What's you gonna say?
But as a mayor, you should set a higher example of kind of how you want to protest and get your point across. I'm sure he had other platforms if he wanted to make a public statement as well. But yeah.
Now, should he resign? We talked about that earlier.
Well,
He's an elected official. Don't we expect more of our elected
He
officials?
didn't call for someone to die either. So
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
and giving him community service when he's a public servant is a little backwards, isn't it?
Maybe he's going to be able to get the council to sign off on his public service hours. Okay.
Very well. Next topic: former postal worker charged in dumping absentee ballots. Andy.
oh wow, okay. I like how you just went all the way over and landed right here. All right, bro.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was going with who wasn't looking at me.
Oh wow. Okay. Well, so here's the deal about that, right? Is there are bad people in every organization? Is this some clear-cut definition of fraud? No. I don't know why this guy did it. He did it. They caught him. They figured it out. They returned all the ballots. Should he have consequences? Yeah, sure. But in every organization, you may have folks who do really horribly dumb and stupid things, and I think that's what this is. This is not an indication of anything bigger other than one guy who decided to toss away some ballots.
I agree. I think it's about the individual, and if people worry about the risk, he was caught. All right.
Right.
So, so there's controls in place that prevented it, and everything was taken care of. So, I can't say that it's about a process. I think it's about the person.
And the penalty for this can be quite harsh, right?
Oh, it
The
is.
penalty is
it
very
is.
hard.
Up to 5 years in prison, $250,000 fine, and 1 year of supervised release. That's pretty hefty.
Yeah.
If he's convicted.
Yeah, and I imagine he's going to be convicted, but at the same point, and it's on both sides. Okay, I'm not going to say one or the other. What type of security does it give us for our absentee ballots? These ballots weren't actually completed. Okay, these were blank ballots that people had requested as an absentee ballot to do the mail-in voting. They weren't completed.
Right.
But what about when we put the stamp on and, I have candidate X in my yard, on my yard sign, and the mailman sees, I don't support them. Okay, and 99.9% of the people who are out there that are doing mail carrier work, I have no question about. Okay, it's that fraction of the percentage that isn't going to get there. We do have drop-in locations. I would encourage people to use that so we don't have those issues, but we've already had some tampering that has been discussed across the country with some people who haven't completed ballots and that they weren't being delivered. And they're researching, they're processing these things. You know, why does the guy not want to do his job? I mean, you have UPS guys who say, oh, well, I don't want to make a delivery today, and they park their truck, and, you know, so where do we stand with it? You know.
Unfortunately, we haven't seen this to be a widespread occurrence, and the penalties are hefty enough that it is such a deterrent to actually engage in that type of behavior. Next, a Florida man stole bulldozer, ran down Biden signs, police say. Henry.
I'm looking at the charges. He's being charged with grand theft auto and trespassing. But he's saying, the officers actually said he was driving while intoxicated. Mm-hmm. Why didn't we charge him for that? Mm-hmm. Okay, so listen, if you're going to throw the book at somebody, throw the book at them. Okay, don't peel a couple pages off and toss at them. Okay, there's no place in society, one, for someone stealing a bulldozer and deciding to start his own demolition crew down the street because he didn't like a candidate sign. Okay, the same thing as some local people in this community that go and take other people's signs out of their front yard or deface those signs. There's no reason for it. Okay, we're allowed to have different opinions. That's what makes America a great country, is that we're allowed to have different opinions and we have to respect their opinions. This guy, I hope they lose the key on his prosecution.
Terrence.
I think all yard signs are ugly, first of all. I think it's the ugliest thing you could do to a community. I'm sorry. That doesn't make me want to vote for you or vote against you. I'm not saying his actions were correct. He shouldn't have destroyed somebody's private property. He shouldn't have been driving drunk on a bulldozer or anything else. But to take that aside, I agree that yard signs need to be destroyed. I think they're ugly as we drive around our community. They're stacked on top of each other. It looks like junk and litter all over the place on some corners. Yeah.
And the survey shows they are the most ineffectual way to communicate.
Of course they are. But some of us are really proud to put a sign with your own name sometimes in your front yard. And to be honest, did we not just talk about private property? This is my property. I'll put whatever the hell sign I want on there, right?
After the show, we can go to Lowe's and you can go paint a sign, put it on your private property.
That would be awesome.
Okay.
But right now I have other signs. But listen, my only response is, of course it's in Florida. Are you kidding me? The man is DUI on a bulldozer. Like, where do you even get a bulldozer to steal?
At a construction company.
Well, okay, yeah.
Well, why did they leave the
Florida.
keys in the bulldozer?
Maybe he hotwired it. You don't know the whole story, but the point is, yes, this is Florida.
Grand theft auto, right?
Yeah.
Yes, grand theft bulldozer.
He probably could have ran faster than as well.
At least he didn't drive into City Hall like some guy did in Colorado
But just
years
think
ago.
about looking out your door and going, I cannot believe I'm watching this bulldozer take out what? Take it. You can have my signs.
Yeah. Terrence, I'll admit you went in the opposite direction because I thought you were going to say all signs matter. And I just thought that we were going to go off the rails with this one. So I'm appreciative that it did not go in that direction because I was going to be concerned. Next, Maryland gun purchase applications have jumped nearly 48% in 2020. Terrence.
It always happens. Right around an election, everyone gets scared that someone's going to knock on their door and say, "Can I have all your guns?" It's
what guns?
there you go. So I'm not surprised by it. It happens, every 4 years that when there's a possible change in guard. So everybody wants to hold on to their guns by any means necessary.
Henry.
Again, I had a discussion with my wife on this, and the funny thing was, I had a family member call me and said, I want to get a gun for security in my house because I said, all right. I said, but since you're not familiar with how to use a gun, I would suggest you get familiar how to use one before you purchase it. And in your case, you'd probably be better with a shotgun than a handgun, because it makes a loud sound and you really don't have to be all that accurate. You just want to try to deter somebody. But that's a little digression from this. I think the pandemic plays an element in this. I also think the temperature of the political climate plays an element. We can look back to when Governor O'Malley instituted the gun registration in the state of Maryland. He did more for the gun industry sales in 1 year than they did in a decade. because everyone who wanted the opportunity to own a handgun did it before they had to go through the registration. So there's people feel scared. Okay, they feel scared regarding the pandemic. They feel scared regarding, well, what this person says they want to take my guns. This person says I should be able to own an Uzi. Well, which one's going to be? So there has to be a happy medium. And until we actually have an intelligent discussion that doesn't involve mudslinging and name calling, and it involves the parties that are involved and not necessarily all the political action groups involved, we're never going to have a solution on guns in this country.
So first, though, we don't know what the political party is of any of these individuals filling out applications. And you got to get an HQL permit. So yes, for a handgun, you have to go through classes. You can't just go buy one.
Today.
That's right. But if you want to buy a shotgun, you can. I think that this one article that we kind of read is a little misleading, right? We have no idea if these are, pro-Second Amendment folks going out and stocking up on weapons. These could be liberal Democrats like myself who have an HQL, right, and go out and start purchasing a handgun or two. Why do we make this political? It could be anybody. Now, what I do agree with is it could be the pandemic as well. I kind of get the whole doomsday scenario. I don't know what's going to happen in a couple months, and I feel as though I need to protect my family with firepower. Okay, maybe I don't get that, but the point is I can see the correlation. But we have no idea what the political parties are of any of the individuals who have an uptick in filling out applications for handguns. None whatsoever. It's a big leap.
And I think NRA is a great marketer. If you watch the ads that they have running right now, why not go get a handgun? It looks like
they've been a little quiet recently.
They've been quiet, but they still market well, and prices are going up, and it could be a Black Friday sale for all I know.
But to clarify, this isn't handguns. This is all gun purchases. This isn't handguns. So this is some that you don't have to go through the background check that you do for a handgun. This is all gun purchases that we're talking. It's 48%, and that's a pretty big jump. Okay, I don't care who you are, and I'm not saying, well, it's Republicans running out for guns or Democrats or Libertarians. I just think that there is a sense among people, regardless of what the party affiliation is, that something might be going sideways.
Or somebody wants to go out and make their own dinner. Like maybe the idea is if you can't find chopped meat in the Safeway, we're going to go hunting in northern Pennsylvania. I don't know, or in southern Maryland.
And that they could be going hunting on the outside of Hagerstown for all we know, and get some of those deer that want to run in front of you.
But there could be 1,000 different reasons of why, and the pandemic may play into it. It doesn't necessarily have to mean it's a pro or Second Amendment anything. That's all I'm saying.
I appreciate your glass half full analysis.
Bro, I'm trying.
Okay, last topic. We need a little levity because we're in a tense political season, and this is going to add levity to the situation. I'm embarrassed to talk about it, but it's been presented as a topic, and we must go forward. Brazilian senator caught hiding cash between his butt cheeks. Terrence, what say you?
Oh, yeah, nice. Pass.
Well, this I think this is a great way to market Bitcoin. Maybe I think this is very old school television that you're going to get away with something like this. There's been years before you can actually get away with doing something like this. So I can't see what the motive would be for doing it, but it makes good news.
Think of where some of those dollar bills have been. Okay, even the stuff that's in your pocket right now. Think of where some of those may have been. Honestly, if the bills don't fit, you must have quit.
Listen, man, as an ex-law enforcement officer, that's nothing. People hide stuff in areas of one's body that has nothing on the story. I leave it there. You're welcome.
You have the last word on that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Welcome back. Barrett has been confirmed, and AOC suggests in a new conference that the U.S. should expand the Supreme Court. Henry, what say you?
Well, it's interesting that the Supreme Court has been at 9 individuals for roughly 150 years. When the nation was first founded, we started off with 5, and then 6, and then 5, and 6 and 7, and then went to 9. At one point, we even had 10. This is like a kid taking the ball and going home, because honestly, she didn't like the nomination of the Supreme Court justice that was just confirmed. So she says, oh, let's make it bigger, and then we'll ram through our people. Well, what's going to happen is the same thing happened when the Democrats changed how we nominate federal judges and remove the supermajority. So the Republicans, when they were in power, said, no problem, we'll do the same thing for the Supreme Court justices. If we would have left the supermajority caveat in, then we would have probably candidates that we all could digest a little better. Instead, we remove that, so neither side of the political aisle is going to be happy, and they can run through with a simple majority. So going through and saying, oh, well, let's do this, to me, it's crying. And I know, last time this was attempted was under FDR, because he was upset over the challenges to his New Deal legislation. He wanted to pack the courts, and there was a public outcry from not just the Republican Party, but his own party. And the Senate didn't support them in doing that. So hopefully, I know this idea has been touted, Joe Biden wants to get a commission. If we're going to do something, let's look at putting a age of retirement for the Supreme Court justices, for subsequent justices coming in. I don't think the solution is by adding additional members to the court, because if you go to 11 members this time, when the Republicans get in, they're going to say, okay, we're going to do this better, we're going to put 15 on. And all of a sudden, the system is not working again. And I think it's just foolish.
Andy.
Yeah, if you think the Democrats are not going to play hardball anymore because the Republicans have kind of rammed this confirmation through, well, I think this is them turning that table around. And I think that if it happens, and it happens in a congressional way that is legal and by right or law, then so be it. That's the laws of our country, and that's what we're doing right now. And if it also means that we can right some wrongs, well,
What are the wrongs?
Oh, I could give you a whole litany about how this is going to affect my life personally, but I don't think we have enough time for that. But my point is, if it's done in a way that is correct and fair, this is the laws of our country. And I think that's exactly what, the right side had been saying, that President Trump has the right to nominate and push through this Supreme Court member. So why wouldn't the Democrats play the same hardball game?
But Obama also exercised the same right. He nominated someone, and the Senate decided not to take up the candidate, which I think is wrong.
Okay, but it happened.
But
I mean,
Trump nominated somebody, and the Senate decided because Republicans had control of the Senate for both times, and as the previous president said, elections do have consequences. Now, if that pendulum swings the other way for this time, again, elections do have consequences, but understand that come the next election cycle, and if the other party wins, it could swing back the other way, and you just don't have control over things.
Yeah, we elect presidents every 4 years because of the party they represent and a changing of the guard. To say this is not broke, and then they say if it's not broke, don't fix it. This is broke. The whole appointment process, legislative branch over the judicial branch for checks and balances. That's the way it's supposed to be set up. But it's broken, So I really think it does allow us to look it over. Not saying it has to be changed, but there's some things that need to be evaluated in our judicial branch. Period. So if this is where we start, then I say there's nothing wrong with coming to the table and having that conversation now. Why not? The world has changed. Just because it has been that way doesn't mean it has to stay that way. Now, you don't want it to happen just because someone feels like a sore loser. But like you said, someone sore losing right now impacts lives. So I say, why not? We should always evaluate if something could be done better.
Yeah, it seems like we're in this vicious cycle, right? Who's in power makes the rules, and many times it's not in the best interest of all the people. It's just in the best interest of that particular party, and that's the piece that is concerning to me.
Well, you remember as kids when we would play baseball, softball, put their hands aside. We're all trying to get to the very top of that bat and be the person that wins, and that's not the way politics works. This has become so spiteful, going from one side to the other side, and both sides are equally guilty. I don't argue with the point that we should make reevaluations of how this is handled, because I think we need to do that. But there needs to be some teeth in that reevaluation. I think there needs to be also some consideration of maybe not having someone serve until they're 98 years old wearing their cloak on the Supreme Court bench. Maybe as we're doing the evaluation, we need to look at term limits for representatives and senators. You look at the whole scheme because the system is not running the way it used to run. And I think it's due to a lot of the bitter and divisive nature of both fringes of each party. The far right and the far left is making this very challenging for us to go forward and have a civil nation. So we need to evaluate how our government functions.
Andy, I'll give you a shot. Solutions.
Solutions to whether we pack the court or not? I mean, oh, wow, okay. Starting at 9. So I don't have a solution. I know that I agree. I think we do have to reevaluate the process, period. I know that right now in my life, this is a scary time with who is on the Supreme Court, with swearing in a Supreme Court justice at the White House. I like the separation of the branches. I like the checks and balances, and I don't think we have that right now. It's terrifying for me. So if I lean a little bit more to let's kind of right some of these incredibly odd wrongs that I feel have been happening, I'll take that, and so be it.
But
What's
this
the
jurist
answer?
has not heard a case yet on the Supreme Court level. So how do you know which way that they're going to come down on?
Are you kidding? I have everything from her past that she's written, that she's been. Right now, I've got 2 justices talking about removing same-sex marriage and bringing that back up again. You know, my very rights as a person are hanging in the balance of a 6-3 majority, Republican or conservative-leaning justice and Supreme Court. And if you don't think that's political, then I would point you to the pictures of her being sworn in with the president standing right behind her.
And that's the same as other justices being sworn in the past. They've had the president present during the swearing in.
Elena Kagan, Sotomayor were done by the vice president, who swore them in a ceremonial ceremony. I'm finding the separation between the powers thinning, and I don't like that. That's what terrifies me. I need that thicker. I need that wide canyon between our powers so that we can have checks and balances, and I find it closing in.
I'm giving you the last word on that. I feel that if Biden wins the presidency, we're going to be talking about this again real soon. If not, it may be off the table for a while.
Right.
That is all the time we have for tonight. We hope you will like us on Facebook. We hope you will follow us on Twitter. And we hope you'll send us your suggestions and comments to feedback@theflipsidetv.com. Good night.